And welcome everybody to the 116th episode of the Fact Is Podcast. We're your hosts, Nate Moses.
And I'm Ryan Mays.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode. Really appreciate everybody being here. As you can see, we did something a little bit new.
We got a sign.
We got a big old sign. So on that sign, it says, the fact is, please make sure you like, comment, share, and follow. Those are the biggest things you can do to absolutely help out our stream and our content making abilities here. So please make sure you all do those things. Also, it lists out everything that we're going to be discussing tonight. So number one is going to be Twitter file hearing. We got a video on that I think you all will appreciate there. Republicans criticize Biden's budget amongst bank collapse. So that's number two article that we're going to be discussing tonight. Hello there, Mr. Dean. Appreciate you coming by.
Old Faithful!
Number three is going to be the Mexican and American border. The war that's been going on there. Yeah, it's been pretty intense down near that border.
Camping.
Number four, U.S. drones in Ukraine. It's another thing to discuss as well. Got some good information there. And then number five, we do have a woman running for president from the Democratic side. She's going against Biden. Can't wait to discuss her.
Isn't that the second woman that's announced candidacy for president?
Yeah, because first one was Hillary, right? Or you mean this year?
This year?
Oh, I have no idea.
There's two. There's one on the Republican side, and then there's one
Who's the
on
Republican side.
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good for them, and hopefully, I do hope that we have some good candidates this year. I don't care what kind of gender, ethnicity you are, whatever. But
I think we should go back to the Roman times and throw them in an arena and let them fight to the death, and whoever comes out on top gets to run for president.
Let them duke it out.
On it.
I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, Also, hey, before we get going, I want to shamelessly plug Athletic Brewing Company. I do not drink alcohol anymore, so I've been looking for a non-alcoholic version of beer because I do love the taste of beer.
Weird.
Athletic Brewing, it's a non-alcoholic craft brew. This is an IPA here, and I'm currently sipping on a golden lager. Non-alcoholic and delicious. So if you're looking for a quote-unquote healthy alternative to beers, check them out. There
it is. So thank you all for joining us.
We are not paid for this.
we are not paid for that. That is correct, unfortunately. But yeah, so thank you all again, like I said, for joining us. And without further ado, let's get to the show. Y'all ready?
Let's get ready to rumble.
I love it. All right, let's roll the first video, Stu, and get that going.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did that last time. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Taibbi, I want to follow up a little bit on the ranking member's questions. When was the first time that Mr. Musk approached you about writing? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did that last time. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Taibbi, I want to follow up a little bit on the ranking member's questions. When was the first time that Mr. Musk approached you about writing the Twitter files?
Again, Congresswoman, that would...
I just need a date, sir.
But I can't give it to you, unfortunately, because this is a question of sourcing, and I don't give up. I'm a journalist. I don't reveal my sources.
It's a question of chronology.
No, that's a question of sourcing.
Because you earlier said that someone had sent you through the internet some message about whether or not you would be interested in some information.
Yes, and I referred to that person as a source.
So you're not going to tell us when Musk first approached you?
Again, Congresswoman, you're asking me you're asking a journalist to reveal a source.
So then you consider Mr. Musk to be the direct source of all this?
No, now you're trying to get me to say that he is the source. I just can't answer your question.
Well, he isn't. If you're telling me you can't answer because it's your source, well, then the only logical conclusion is that he is, in fact, your source.
Well, you're free to conclude that.
Well, sir, I just don't understand. You can't have it both ways, but let's move on because
no, he can. He's a journalist.
No, he can't because either Musk is the source and he can't talk about it, or Musk is not the source. And if Musk is not the source, then he can discuss
No
his
one has
conversations
yielded. The
with
gentlelady's out
source.
of order. You don't get
And
to
she's
speak
out of
every
order
time.
Gentlelady is
because
not
he's
recognized. The
interrupted.
gentlelady is
Mr.
not
Chairman,
You're
recognized.
not recognized,
my
Mr.
time.
Chairman.
He has not
Mr.
said
Chairman,
that.
I don't.
What he has
talking
said is
about
he's
his-
not going to
Chairman,
reveal his source, and the
I
fact
did
that
not yield
Democrats
my
are
time
pressuring
to
him
the
to do
chairman
so
or
is
the
such a
We're
regulator.
not.
violation
We're
of the
asking
First
him
Amendment.
about his
I have my time
conversations
back.
with
The
Musk.
Gentlelady has not yielded you time. You don't
I
get
have
to
not
just talk
yielded
over
time
her.
to anybody. I want to reclaim my time, and I would ask the chairman to give me back some of the time because of the interruption. Mr. Chairman, I am asking you if you will give me the seconds that I lost.
We will give you that 10 seconds.
Thank you. Now, let's talk about another item that you, when you responded to the ranking member. You said that you had free license to look at everything, but yet you yourself posted on your I guess it's kind of like a web page. I don't quite understand what Substack is, but that what I can say is that in exchange for the opportunity to cover a unique and explosive story, I had to agree to certain conditions. What were those conditions? She asked you that question, and you said you had none, but you yourself posted that you had conditions.
No, the conditions, as I've explained multiple times.
No, sir, you've not explained. You told her in response to her question that you had no conditions. In fact, you kind of used the word license, that you were free to look at all of them, all 100,000 emails.
I was, the question was posed, was I free to write about?
Sir, did you have any conditions?
The condition was that we published
Sir,
on
did you
Twitter.
have any conditions, yes or no? A simple question.
Yes.
All right, could you tell us what conditions those were?
The conditions were an attribution, sources at Twitter, and that we break any news on Twitter.
But you didn't break it on Twitter. Did you send the file that you released today to Twitter first?
Did I send the,
Sir, I'm
actually I
asking you
did, yes.
today.
Yeah.
Did you send it to Twitter first?
The Twitter
That was
files
one of the
thread?
conditions? Yes or no, sir?
The Twitter files thread actually did come out first.
But sir, you said earlier that you had to attribute all the sources to Twitter first. What you released today, did you send that to Twitter first?
No, I posted it on Twitter.
First. First, sir. Or did you give it to the ranking member, to the chairman of the committee or the staff of the committee first?
Well, that's not breaking the story. That's giving, yes, I did give.
So you gave all the information that you did not give to the Democrats, you gave it to the Republicans first, then you put it on Twitter?
Actually, no, the chronology is a little bit confused.
Well, then
It's more or
tell
less
us
the
what the
same time.
chronology was.
I believe the thread came out first
Where?
on Twitter.
On Twitter. So then you afterwards gave it to the Republicans and not the Democrats?
Yes, because I'm submitting it for the record as my statement.
Did you give it to them in advance?
I gave it to them today.
You gave it to them today, but you still have not given anything to the Democrats. Well, I'll move on, and I wanted to ask Mr. Schellenberger the same question, sir. When did you first visit with or get contacted by Mr. Musk?
I'm not going to reveal my sources, but like I said, I was invited by Barry Weiss. and
I'm
it
not
was-
asking for sources, sir. I'm just asking
Yeah,
for chronology.
I
When did
was-
you first make contact with Mr. Musk?
I don't know the exact date.
Was it
It was December.
2020?
It was December.
December of, well, there's a lot of Decembers in history.
December of
sir.
last year.
Which December?
December of last year, ma'am.
Last year, the 22?
Yes.
All right. Now, in your discussion, in your answer, you also said that you were invited by a friend, Barry Weiss?
My friend Barry Weiss.
So this friend works for Twitter, or what is her,
She's a journalist.
sir, I didn't ask you a question. I'm now asking Mr. Schellenberger a question. Please
Yes,
do
ma'am.
not
Barry Weiss is a
interrupt.
journalist.
I'm sorry, sir?
She's a journalist.
She's a journalist, so you work in concert with her?
Yeah.
Do you know when she first was contacted by Mr. Musk?
I don't know.
You don't know. So you're in this as a threesome?
There was many more people involved than that.
There was many more people involved with that. Are you being paid to be here today, either through consulting fees,
No,
campaign contribution to your
absolutely
next
not.
run?
Gentlelady's
Absolutely
time
You
is
have an interview
gentlelady's
scheduled after
time
this
is
hearing?
expired.
Absolutely not.
Gentlelady's time has
Thank you.
expired.
Thank you.
I don't know what to say other than I'll recognize the gentleman from North Dakota for 5 minutes.
Thank you, yes, Mr. Chairman, and I'll yield my 5 minutes
Oh,
to you.
I appreciate the gentleman yielding. I do think it's worth pointing out that, I have co-sponsored, I think some of my colleagues have co-sponsored the SHIELD Act in previous Congresses with Democrats to protect what we see them trying to do today. Protect.
So that was a bit of a mess.
With an unexpected twist.
Yeah, that was.
It was like a real like crap show, and then all of a sudden she's talking about threesomes. So I was
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, calm down here, lady."
Yeah, I don't know. That was an absolute mess. So I don't know what any of y'all thought about that, but I mean, it just goes to show.
Taxpayer dollars hard at work.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it was absurd because they kept saying they're not revealing their sources. Like, I understand they were trying to find out when they communicated with Musk, but.
Well, she was trying, based on her questioning, it sounded like she was trying to get them to out Musk as their source.
Yeah, and that's the way it made it sound like she was trying to do.
She's
That's
like,
why.
So Musk was the yeah. It looks like she's trying to pin blame on Musk.
Yeah, even though, I mean, again, there's actual data showing that Democrats paid as much money as they did to Twitter and to, well, who knows how many other social media sites.
Well, we don't have
that
the Facebook
information.
files. We don't
Yeah.
have the Instagram files. We don't have those yet. And so long as the Android, who is Mark Zuckerberg, runs those companies, I doubt his computing will allow us to have those.
His computing. Oh man. So yeah,
I'm on it here tonight, boys.
So yeah, I mean, that was, like I said, that was an absolute mess. It was ridiculous that they just continuously ask the same questions over and over again. When they keep saying they're not going to reveal your source, it's like saying I plead the fifth. They don't have to say a word if they don't want to.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So just continuously asking the same thing over and over again. I want the MySpace files. I want the MySpace files too, because God only knows what Tom did out in those days, trying to.
I bet you Tom lives like a playboy now.
I wonder what Tom does with his stuff.
Tom sold MySpace for like $650 million.
Feel bad for whoever bought it.
Yeah. That was a great move on Tom's
Yeah,
part.
great move on Tom. He sold out right at the right time. But
Dude, Tom is, yeah, he was on it.
There was
man.
a part 2 in this encounter. I don't think it showed in the video.
Oh, God.
But that lady called both of them, they were like so-called journalists. When one of those journalists has been a journalist for a long time with like the Rolling Stone, he's won awards. Like, they're all journalists, but
right.
for some reason that panel, wanted to throw him in a bubble.
That question their credibility.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like what they were trying to do is, like you said, question their credibility and then throw it out as like a faulty source or something.
Right. Like that they weren't truly sources.
In these backwoods politics.
Yeah, basically saying they were discreditable.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that well, like I've said multiple times, that was a mess. I don't
I mean,
know.
I thought it was a very well organized debate.
Oh, you thought so?
No.
So yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say much more than that. I mean, it was definitely something I would not like to watch again. And like Dean
In fact,
says,
I would rather watch paint dry.
Yeah, like Dean says, he feels like that's how a lot of these congressional hearings go. They just kind of go back and forth at each other. They're wasting their time. We're wasting our money, putting these people in place, and it's just a continuing, never-ending battle of just arguing with each other. So yeah,
It's a circle of life.
everyone interrupts each other and they talk in circles. Yeah, and yeah, give me my time back. Getting all frustrated with that. I don't know why you can't.
It was so funny because Jim Jordan was like, "Yeah, we'll give you that 10 seconds, back."
Yeah.
Hey, 10 seconds means a lot though, especially in like a basketball game.
10 seconds does mean a lot. But
you can get at
anyways.
least 4 commercial breaks in 10 seconds.
At least. But yeah, with all that being said, so yeah, like I said, that was a pretty crazy situation that we all just got to witness, and going forward, we're just gonna move forward on that one. So again, take to it as you will, and do your own research, come up with what you think. Let's talk about number 2, which is going to be Republicans criticizing Biden and his budget amid the banking crisis that we just saw here recently. So,
I don't know if I'd call it a banking crisis. It sounds like 3 banks were really, really, really positioned crappily.
That's a fair way of putting it.
The rooster came home to nest.
Do we know who owns those banks?
I do not.
Interesting question. If you can find that, that'd be great. Unless it says it right here in the article, because I'll be honest, I didn't look into that.
Good news is I called my bank and they said they're solvent. So,
thank goodness. So
knock on wood.
Knock on wood. So U.S. Senate Republicans accused Democratic President Joe Biden of misleading Americans about his $6.8 trillion budget plan to reduce deficits and shore up Medicare in a debate that reinforced an increasingly risky standoff over spending and the country's debt ceiling. At a Senate Budget Committee hearing on Wednesday with White House Budget Director Shalanda Young, Republicans dismissed the budget plans aimed of reducing deficits by nearly $3 trillion over the next decade and instead claimed the proposal would kill jobs, grow the federal deficit, and add to the debt. Republicans who control the House of Representatives have yet to produce their own budget or to offer concrete deficit reduction plans, making Biden's proposal an early step in negotiations over fiscal 2024 spending. Republicans have refused to raise the nation's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling unless Democrats agree to sharp spending cuts. We have to use the debt ceiling issue to pry the nation's maxed out credit card from Joe Biden's hands, Republican Senator Roger Marshall has said. Democrats also showed no sign of budging from their own refusal to negotiate over the borrowing limit. We need to drop the politics, address the debt ceiling without any strings attached, and soon, said Democratic Senator Patty Murray, who chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee. Failure to address the debt ceiling could lead to an unprecedented default by the federal government that would rattle the global economy and financial markets, which have been volatile following the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. New financial strains at Credit Suisse threatened to raise the stakes even further. Young insisted that Biden's budget would reduce deficits without imposing a penalty on working families through nearly $5 trillion in tax increases on the wealthy and large corporations to help offset spending and shore up Medicare. But Republican Senator Mitt Romney suggested that the president's deficit reduction forecast was based on federal spending for the COVID-19 pandemic from previous budgets. To say somehow that he's been cutting the deficit is not realistic, Mitt Romney told Young. Added Senator Chuck Grassley, the panel stopped Republican. It seems to me the administration misleads the American people on real deficit reductions.
Well, how do you add $6.4 trillion to the budget and then expect that to cut down the deficit?
Yeah, I mean...
Also, by adding $6.4 trillion, how do we then stop the problem that is inflation? Because we're just pumping more money into the system.
Economy, yeah. I have no answers. I mean,
do we have an economist on hand?
I'm still trying to understand how these banks aren't going to be. I mean, are they going to be held accountable for, all that money that those people were putting into into those banks? What happens to their money? I mean, is it
That's
just
why the
completely
FDIC
gone?
jumped in.
Right.
That's why they stepped in, and it's going to be months. Think about that. A lot of these tech businesses and everything just had all their assets frozen. And it's going to be months before they can access their funds again.
That's crazy.
BuzzFeed just came out and said that they might go under because of this.
My goodness.
I mean, it's not a bad thing because BuzzFeed sucks. But
Right, but I mean, it's still.
Still people losing jobs.
People losing jobs, and it hurts our economy.
I mean, actually, yes, it does hurt the economy, but it does help the problem that is inflation.
Right. So
perhaps with these smaller to mid-sized businesses potentially going under, enough people will start losing their jobs that the Fed says, well, we need to reverse course. Because right now, with them hiking rates on everything, it's really not helping anybody on any stretch right now.
Right.
Like, yes, the inflation is high. Goods are more expensive. But the cost of everything is going through the roof. 1, because of inflation. 2, because of the interest rates. So it's like, I don't know. Which devil do you get in bed with?
Well, and then the other thing is, so even if the FDIC did step in, they're only insured up to so much money.
No, they said something that they are going to insure the depositors.
Okay. So even if you had $500,000 in your account, are they going to be able to refund that full $500,000?
Bro, you're talking about a full-on bailout. There were $200 billion in assets. SVB.
That's wild.
Yeah. That's like bailing the auto industry out in 2008.
Oh my goodness. GMC, right? Who else was it?
GMC or GM.
GM.
GM got bailed out.
I
Who
heard
else got bailed
people
out?
that are selling stuff on Etsy too are struggling.
Yep. Etsy looks like it might go down too.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Because for some reason or another, this doesn't make any sense to me though. Etsy is just a platform in which people sell goods.
Yeah.
So why are people's assets being frozen on Etsy? It's not like, I thought that was set up to where the transaction happened separately. I didn't know Etsy collects the money, holds it for a second, and then turns it back out to people.
Yeah, that's interesting. Or were all the transactions going through that bank, one of the banks? Maybe no.
Maybe
I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. I have no idea why. So, more to come with those bank failures and what happened there.
For a second, I thought you were saying Mordor. I was like, we're not talking about
Mordor.
Lord of the Rings. One ring to rule them all.
But yeah, more to talk about there. I don't think banks should be allowed to invest like they do. That's an interesting take, Dean.
Faithful, I agree with you, and I will raise you senators. I don't think senators should be allowed to invest the way they do.
I'll raise you another one. Anybody in government. No, yeah, I mean, that's a great point, right? And so it is interesting. So if what would, and just thinking about this, off the top of your head, what would we do? What would those banks do with that money? How would they invest it? How would they make sure that, because the concept of the banking industry is truly interesting.
Well, have you ever heard of fractional banking?
Yeah.
That's what's happening right now, and that's why this bank is collapsing, because they had $200 billion in assets and they loaned out probably $2 trillion in different loans. Probably not that high, but that's how the banking system works.
So do you think that they shouldn't be able to loan
hold
out
on to $1 and then loan out 10?
Do you think they shouldn't be able to loan out any more than what's invested?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's
I mean,
like
that's how
how
you
it
stay
should
solvent.
work, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, granted, that's how the banking system's been doing it for a long time now. But
Right.
But what they do is, for every $10 that's created or $10 that's deposited, they take your $10.
Yeah.
They keep $1 of it and they loan out the other 9.
Yeah, right.
And then they do that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So that $10 just created $100 in revenue.
And most of that revenue goes towards the bank, of course.
That's how they make money.
Or well, I guess all the revenue really
So
goes towards the bank.
here's, if you actually want to understand this, there's a really good movie, and I've got my fur hat on. I don't have my tin hat on, so take this for what it's worth. It's called Zeitgeist.
Yeah.
If you guys have seen that or not. It is conspiracy theory kind of geared. So if you don't want to hear an opposing stance on your religion, don't watch it.
But it is very educational on the banking system.
Yes. And if you don't want to hear an opposing view of 9/11, don't watch it. But there's a segment in the middle where it talks about the fractional banking system, and it's actually it's really informative and how that works.
If I'm not wrong, they talk about Rothschild family as well.
Oh
too,
man,
correct?
Zeitgeist gets into all of it.
Thought so. Yeah,
That's a great
it's
movie.
been years since I've seen it, but I've watched that before. So.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Very informative.
So Dean says banks should lend out loans and charge interest, but only be able to lend what they can cover. Exactly. And that's that. I mean, I agree with that. And they should only lend out what people can afford also, which is where 2008 came into play, because they were giving people who could not afford those specific mortgages just oodles amounts of money that they couldn't afford or pay back. So yeah, I can definitely see that perspective.
Well, and banks are going to learn from this, because they learned from 2008. It's harder now to qualify for a mortgage than it's ever been before. So, the other banks that haven't collapsed, but maybe got their cages rattled a little bit, they're going to say, "Ooh, we need to change some things."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, make more sound investments. If you're going to put people's money into the stock market, put it in something that is almost a guarantee, like an
Right.
S&P 500, not, bonds.
Yeah. So you might not. So
that
you
are
might
tied
not
to
make.
the interest rates.
Yeah. You might not make. As much as you would if you took risky investments into stocks and whatnot, but you'd be able to at least make that 5%. Like
5 to 7%.
But
5 to 7% on $200 billion
but
is
God
still
forbid
quite
they
a
don't,
bit of money.
Yeah, but God forbid they don't make like 20% so they can get their extra bonuses for the year.
Well, and that's where capitalism kind of runs wild.
Yep. Dean says as the banks make more on interest, they'd be able to lend out more money. I don't know much about the inner workings of banks, but that makes sense to me. And that, I mean, it does kind of make sense there, right? So as you're able to make more on the interest, you're able to use that interest for like principal loans, which kind of makes sense to me. But again, it's yeah. So welcome to fractional banking.
Welcome to fractional banking, where money is created out of thin air.
Thin air.
And they wonder why we call it a fiat currency.
It's not backed by anything anymore. But anyways, that's besides the point. Let's talk about Mexico. Or no, wait. It looks like you got something else up there, Stu. We're gonna talk about. That's right, Silicon Valley. Sorry, let me pull that one up. Okay, so we're actually going to keep diving into the bank situation because I got that one as well. We had 2 articles. I apologize. I misplaced mine.
Man, Nave, you threw your co-host a curveball on this one,
Oh,
too,
yeah,
because I did not
100%.
know that we had the 2 on there. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Here we go. Oh.
So, Misinformation Watch. So, did wokeness or deregulation cause Silicon Valley banks to collapse? Following the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, outlets across the spectrum sought to explain what caused the largest bank failure since 2008, while financial explanations were mostly consistent across the political spectrum. Some right-rated outlets linked SVB's collapse to the bank's purportedly woke policies. Left-rated sources, meanwhile, downplayed or ignored these accusations, while some drew connections between the collapse and the deregulatory efforts under the Trump administration. Various sides of the media presented different conclusions of what caused SVB's failure. When that happens, misinformation can spread. So what happened to SVB? Before exploring speculation on factors that potentially contributed to the collapse, here is a rundown on what is known about the collapse of SVB. SVB catered primarily to technology startups, which are capital-intensive businesses. SVB are invested heavily in government bonds, which we just discussed, which have decreased in value recently due to the Fed interest rates hiking. Last week, SVB announced plans to sell additional stock to make up for the losses inflicted by the bond value decreases. This sparked a bank run as customers worried about their money invested in the bank rushed to withdraw it. On Thursday alone, customers tried to withdraw $42 billion from SVB on Friday. The FDIC stepped in and took control of the bank. The SEC and the DOJ are both opening investigations into the collapse. And then the rest of it just kind of talks about like more of a right and left perspective and how they're kind of blaming each other, blah, 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 whatever.
What else is new?
So to look at it like this, I mean, there you go. Why would you ever invest into something that heavily, considering your banking system, into the interest rates when we knew the interest rates were going to spike? Like, we absolutely knew it. We saw it coming. And you know, I have no idea. Any finance people or economists in the crowd? That's what I would love. I would love to have some more finance and economists in this discussion, because I mean I'm not an expert in it. You know, I took business courses. I understand a decent basic amount of understanding, but not like this.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn. No, I mean I really wish we had an economist or somebody that works in either macro or microeconomics.
Yeah,
that
for
would
real.
be really cool. Just to kind of get a gauge on what exactly is happening. I think that would be informative.
I think so too. But
So, hey, Old Faithful, if you know anybody who works in the finance department,
send them our way.
send them our way. We're looking for guest speakers to come on to our show. So
Absolutely. We are looking to line some things up there. So would love to have some guests to be able to kind of discuss these situations and be able to find out more. So, yeah, but so as we know of right now, the banks made some pretty horrible
Terrible
investments.
decisions.
Decisions.
They invested into the government. What are
Who
they
does
thinking?
that?
All the government's good at doing is creating debt.
Creating a currency that's backed by literally nothing. I'll see what I can find. Perfect, Dean.
Appreciate you, Old Faithful.
But yeah, all right. So there's that. We will keep more on SVB and of course all the discussion that comes out of there and what happens. So please stay tuned for that. But let's talk about Mexico. Now we're talking about Mexico. So Mexico warns Republicans about border war. The Mexican president Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador has warned GOP lawmakers that Mexico will not allow foreign governments to intervene in its territory after some members of the party advocated for the U.S. to take military action against Mexico's drug cartels. Dan Crenshaw, who introduced legislation allowing American forces to act, responded by asking Lopez Obrador why he rejects U.S. aid. Senator Lindsey Graham has also suggested the U.S. military should be authorized to take action against the cartels. Mexican Foreign Affairs Secretary Marcelo Ebrard also rejected these ideas, saying that it's obvious the advocating for American intervention is an electoral strategy.
So here's my take on this before we even get into it.
Yeah, let me hear it.
Mexico's saying no, don't take action against our cartels because that's their number one cash crop.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you can't do that. How are we gonna make money?
I mean, yeah. It's also interesting though to see that. Well, is it interesting or is it not interesting to see that they want the military industrial complex to intervene with this?
No, it's not.
Not at all.
I mean, it's not a surprise.
Right.
I mean, interesting, I guess, would be okay. Yeah, I guess you could call it interesting. It's more like in other news, water is wet.
Anything you can do to get the military involved.
Anything we can do to get that military up and running.
Yeah. I mean, Dan Crenshaw, of course, being somebody who used to serve in our military. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I used to like him too, but
me too.
He's taken a downfall,
major downfall.
especially when what was it? The situation in the Middle East when we pulled out of Afghanistan, when the Taliban. Remember how there was like that photo of a guy from a helicopter and they acted
that video?
Yeah, but the misinformation that came out of that video, Dan Crenshaw was one of the people that shared it as well. It was it was a guy that was strapped there for a reason, like they were actually doing something, and he was purposely strapped there, whereas they were trying to say he was like tortured and hung or whatever it was, and it was completely false. And Dan Crenshaw actually posted that on his Instagram. It's Instagram or Twitter, one of the two. And it was just crazy because again, they feed into this misinformation, and you're like one of the individuals that should have the information faster than anybody else. But that's just my take. So anyways, no, let's hear it, Dean. Sorry to go back, but I didn't know this. The CEO SVB sold $3.6 million in stock 2 weeks before the collapse. Of course, that person.
I don't know. That could also be looked at as just bad timing.
It could be.
$3.6 million is not like a huge amount of money.
Right.
I mean, it's a big amount of money for like everyday normal citizens, you and I. But
somebody like him or her.
Somebody who's worth 50, 60, 70 million. That's like, oh, okay, I'm just getting my bonus.
I'm just going to sell my stock, yeah.
Plus, it's the beginning of the year. Most of the time, that's when, a lot of these CEOs and stuff are cashing out their stock options for bonuses.
Yeah.
I am going to presume innocence until proven guilty on this one.
Yeah, fair enough. Just like we should with almost everything, right? Innocent until proven guilty. That's where
I sound like a Fed? Oh, no.
We're following the Constitution, sir. Innocent until proven guilty.
Phew, you just called me a Fed.
Nope. Stuart hates justice. So
Stuart hates the Constitution. He said, hold on now. I gotta defend myself on this.
Time out. So, all right, let's discuss more about the border situation, though. So, Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador sent a stark warning to GOP lawmakers after some elected officials advocated for the United States to take military action against the drug cartels on the border. We are not going to permit any foreign government to intervene in our territory, much less that government's armed forces intervention. or to intervene. Said Thursday news conference. He added that Mexico was its own sovereign state and not a protectorate of the United States nor a colony of the United States. Earlier this week, Mexican officials confirmed that 2 of the 4 U.S. citizens who were kidnapped by members of the Gulf cartel had been killed. Shortly after the Americans had crossed the border into the city of Matamoros, a cartel stronghold, for a medical procedure last Friday, they were shot at and kidnapped by members of the cartel. Authorities say the other 2 U.S. citizens have been returned home. The incident, which happened just on the other side of Brownsville, Texas, has drawn national attention to the terror that Mexicans have faced for years. It has also prompted calls from prominent Republicans like Senator Lindsey Graham, Representative Dan Crenshaw, and Marjorie Taylor Greene for the U.S. to authorize military force against the cartels. In a video shared online Wednesday, Crenshaw asked Lopez Obrador in Spanish, "Why do you reject aid from the United States? Why do you protect the cartels?" Which is kind of a good question. I'll give him that. The Texas Republican introduced legislation back in January that would allow for the U.S. military to take action against cartels, although such a move would have to be passed by a divided Congress to be signed into law by President Joe Biden. Since the kidnapping, Graham has suggested that we would be prepared to introduce a similar proposal in the Senate that would designate certain cartels as foreign terrorist organizations and set the stage for force if necessary.
Certain cartels.
Yeah,
not all of them.
Not all of them, just certain.
Yeah, just the ones we don't like.
I would tell the Mexican government, if you don't clean up your act, we're going to clean it up for you, the South Carolina senator told Fox News on Monday. I do want to kind of stop there for a minute and just kind of talk about, it's kind of crazy how 4 Americans, like, don't get me wrong, or technically only 2 Americans lost their lives. Like, 4 Americans get captured and we are making a huge deal and we want to intervene, but we have no problems bombing the Middle East and killing hundreds and thousands of civilians over there. And we don't hold ourselves accountable for something of that nature. So I just want to point out the, hypocrisy.
You keep talking like that, my friend.
Remember
those databases we were talking about?
I'm just saying, like, don't get me wrong, like, I understand and we want to protect our citizens, and the cartel has,
But that's with the example you gave, that's not American citizens, that's their citizens.
That's
how the U.S. looks at it.
That's what's frustrating, right? Like,
yeah.
That's kind of
where
where
life is only valuable if it's Americans in the eyes of our government. And then, honestly, even then,
it's a gray area. Yeah, seriously.
It's a gray area. If you're homeless, we don't care about you.
No.
If you're a veteran, we still don't really care
if you're
about
Edward
you.
Snowden, get out of here.
Get out of here.
So even if it's just crazy
we
to
care
see
when it can get our military going. Let's
Anything.
rev up those engines, boys.
Hey, they still need some cartels to fund the economy. They can't all be considered terrorists.
That's the other thing is, like, okay, so what door would this open for Mexico? Because we all know how heavily ingrained the cartels are in Mexico.
Oh yeah.
So if he says, all right, go after the cartels, what door does that open?
Yeah.
Now the United States just took over Mexico because
We're going to be fighting all of Mexico.
all of Mexico.
Yeah, basically.
And we're gonna eradicate the cartels, and then we have to put in a whole new system of governance in there because it's so deeply embedded.
Yep.
And I think this Mexican president understands that.
Yeah.
And that's why he's like, nope.
Now,
Can't let that happen.
it'll be interesting to see if they call him out and say, hey, what are you going to do then? Right? Like, are you going
Sounds
to
like
stop
Crenshaw
this?
just did that.
Yeah, I mean, basically. And it sounds like he did just call him out. But, I mean,
Why are you protecting the cartels, bro? They
yeah.
paying you checks.
So, in response to Lopez Obrador's threatened to start a campaign against the Republican Party if their members use Mexico for their propagandist, electoral, and political purposes, saying Mexico would call on its nationalists and other Hispanics living in the U.S. to not vote for that party because they are inhumane and interventionist. On Thursday, Crenshaw told the Mexican president on Twitter to bring it and advised him to campaign against the cartels who are murdering your own people, not the Americans who want to help eradicate them. Interesting. I mean, way of putting it. I mean, truly. Yeah, because, I mean, when you look at, like, the massive amount of immigration that we get over to the U.S., it is in fear of the cartel when it comes from that southern border. They are absolutely terrified, and I would be too. Because if you do the wrong thing, I mean, your family's gone.
Say the wrong thing.
Yeah, say the wrong thing. You're dead.
And we've
that's
all heard the horror
terrifying.
stories about how like harsh the cartels are too. They don't just go after you; they go after your entire family. And
Oh
they
yeah.
snuff out,
Oh, they'll
snuff out the whole
generations worth.
lineage.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter. And the scariest thing about that is like, I don't know if y'all have seen some of these videos that used to get posted on Facebook before, like they were really good at removing them. But I mean, I've seen literal videos of people getting their heads chopped off, like right there. It was
okay, this took a
not.
turn.
Oh, have you never seen that before?
I don't like to go and look for losing
I
of heads.
didn't either, but I had a friend that used to post some very gruesome stuff, and he was from Mexico, and he was trying to show like, hey, this is what happens there, and it legit. I mean, I'll tell you, it had 4 women all butt naked on their
we're good.
knees and took it off, and it machetes. It was crazy. And I sat there and looked at that for a minute, and I said, no wonder people are trying to flee. Now, could it have been a fake video? Potentially. But back in the day, before Facebook really started taking videos down for, like, violating their policies or whatever, there would be some stuff that got leaked like that. And I saw horrendous
Which means you can still
videos.
probably find it on Twitter.
Oh, I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could. Or Reddit or anywhere else you want to find it. There's ways to find those videos. Now, whether you actually want to go searching for them or not, I don't want to.
I would suggest it.
Yeah, I would
feel
not
like that would
suggest
decay some of your soul.
It really. I mean, I cried. I legit cried. I mean, I watched that and was like, holy
I've seen some
crap.
messed up videos. Like I saw the Taliban like beheading videos and stuff like that. It jacked me up for a couple days,
it
man.
does,
I'm
dude.
like, ooh.
Because you realize how fortunate we are to live in a country like this, where you don't necessarily have to worry about being beheaded every single day, or
Well, the other thing is it actually made me kind of like really respect our government in a way, because they do such a good job at shielding all of us from those atrocities that happen in the world.
That is a good point too.
And think about that. Like we just go along living our lives like everything's all hunky dory.
And
meanwhile,
every single day, things
Yeah.
like that are happening out there that we
That's
don't
nuts.
even know of. So, yeah, very, very disturbing videos that I know I used to see, that my friend used to post on Facebook, and yeah, but just things like that. And there's a reason they're trying to get away from the cartel. So, hopefully they can. Hopefully they can. Hopefully they make themselves a good life here in the U.S. But anything else on that, gentlemen? Anything else on the cartel? As Dean
no.
says, collateral damage. Yeah.
I actually don't want to talk about the Mexican cartel too much.
Yeah, neither do I.
Just doesn't sound like a door I want to open.
No. So, whether we intervene or not, we will keep track of that.
Yep.
That's all we'll keep track of. So anyways, moving on to Ukraine. Despite downed drone, U.S. says it will keep flying near Ukraine. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Wednesday told his Russian counterpart that the United States will fly and operate wherever international law allows, including airspace near Ukraine. Austin delivered his message in a phone call with the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. I'm sorry, Sergei. No, I know that part. I don't know what the second part of his name is.
Shoigu.
Shoigu. Okay, let's go with that.
Yeah, looks right.
A day after 2 Russian fighter jets confronted a U.S. drone over the Black Sea off the southern coast of Ukraine. Pentagon says the Russian Su-27s harassed the drone for at least half an hour, flying in front of it and dumping fuel on it before one of the Russian planes clipped a propeller on the drone, forcing it down. Russia claims its planes made no contact with the drone, saying the U.S. aircraft crashed on its own, making a sharp maneuver. We take any potential for escalation very seriously, Austin said of his talk with the Shoigu. I'm so bad at butchering names. I think
You really
it's,
are.
I'm horrible. I'm good at butchering names. Yeah,
I give you an A+ in the category of butchering names.
I'll take it. I think it's really key that we keep that we are able to pick up the phone and engage each other. I think that it will help prevent miscalculation. Austin spoke to reporters at the Pentagon following a virtual meeting with the more than 50 nations that are supporting Ukraine, many of them members of NATO and the European Union. Standing next to Austin, U.S. Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said the Pentagon has video footage of mid-air confrontation though he's still not sure whether the Russian jet intentionally made contact with the MQ-9 Reaper drone. Was it
Wouldn't that be
intentional
a
or
really
not?
stupid way for World War III to just pop off?
Oh,
Like,
just because like they
they
clipped
were
each other or
dumping
whatever.
fuel, like they were up above and dumping fuel on it. Like, haha, look at this stupid drone. Oh, we just knocked it out of the sky. Oh no.
Oh no.
What
Now
does that mean?
was it intentional or not? Don't know yet. We know that the intercept was intentional. We know the aggressive behavior was intentional. We also know it was very unprofessional. So there's that. Scrolling
You know what
down.
that tells me though? That tells me right now that Russia just doesn't want any parts of an escalation. I mean, we don't want any parts of an escalation either.
Yeah, I don't think we do
But-
either, but still.
I mean, we have a long way to go before we get to nuclear weapons, I think. And if that started the whole, if that was the domino, it doesn't sound like Russia wants any parts of that.
Right, and then Stu, go back up to that map. I actually don't have the map on my screen, but I see it right here on the TV. That's kind of cool. So it gives you a location as to where the drone made contact with the Russian aircraft as well. You know, so here's the thing. I mean, we won't really truly know as to who's telling the truth until we see evidence of the drone. Did the drone actually get hit? Is there damage? Was there?
Did they blow it up when it hit the ground?
Yeah, like I don't understand. You know, I would like to see the proof that Russia did it, but again, you know, for
This
for
very
any
well,
kind of
this
evidence
very
or-
easily could just be a propaganda.
that, for either side. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And it's so hard to say, but there's no point in escalating something that's so minor, in my opinion. You know, because when you look at something like a drone, now granted, yes, it costs lots and lots of money, but there was no human lives lost. There was nothing crazy, and you know, I mean, we are in like the middle of a war with them, essentially. You know,
proxy war.
Proxy war. I mean, we're backing Ukraine and we're funding them massive amounts of money financially, of course, and
Almost as much money as just got seized by the United States
isn't that
government.
Dun dun dun.
Let me take this fur hat off and put my tin one
Yeah,
on.
let's put the tinfoil hat on. Investing into tech companies.
Yeah.
So I've heard.
Does tech start with a U?
But
And I'm not talking about a university.
but yeah, so with that being said, you know, I'm kind of like at that with it, right? Like they knocked down a drone, whatever. Move on, move forward. Like I said, we're in the midst of a war, basically.
Hey, Dre just got
Hey.
here.
There he is, tuned in late. That's all right, Dre. You missed a couple things. Just kind of touch up. We have a board right here that kind of talks about everything that we talked about so far tonight. Not to mention, you need to like, comment, share, and follow.
We've got a board now.
We've got a board.
It'll
we-
change every week too.
We
Watch.
went over
I
the
promise.
Twitter files. We went over Biden's budget amongst the three banks collapsing over in California, SVB. Mexican-American border and how Republicans are looking to have our military-industrial complex kind of intervene with that. And then we just finished up with the U.S. drone getting knocked out by a Russian aircraft fighder. So
I see
There's
what
that.
you did there, Dre.
You
I
like
see what
that
you did
hat?
there. I like 10 hats. They're sharp.
I like tin hats. I like
no
that.
pun intended.
Oh man. But our last topic is actually going to talk about Marianne Williamson confirming that she will run for president in 2024. So for those who don't know, Marianne Williamson is going to go against President Joe Biden for the nominee for the Democratic candidate. And then Republican
I have
candidate.
to do some research on her to see if she's any good.
Yeah, I don't know too much about her myself, but remind me again who the Republican woman candidate is as well.
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley, thank you. And then, you know, that's another one that is also, and that's the first time I think in history we've had two women running to become president on both sides, isn't it?
No, one on each side. Sarah Palin, Hillary Clinton.
Oh, that's right, Sarah Palin. Forgot about her.
You know, she could see Russia from her backyard.
So we'll So we'll keep track of that as well. It would definitely be the first time in history if they both won like the nominee, because obviously then it comes down to a woman president on either side. But
I'm kind of with Joe Rogan on this. Like, let a lady get in there and just mess it up just as bad as any man has done. Because it's an impossible job.
It is. I mean, yeah, you're held to impossible standards.
It's an impossible job.
Yeah.
So like, at this point,
it don't matter who you throw in there. It's all gonna get
it's all
screwed
gonna
up.
be just more of the same.
I love it. All right, so let's touch up on this topic. So Marianne Williamson, a prominent progressive who ran for president in 2020, didn't know that, confirmed in an interview published Thursday that she will run again for the Democratic nomination for president in 2024. That would put her in the Democratic primary against President Biden, who has not announced his own plans, but is widely expected to run for re-election next year. I wouldn't be running for president if I didn't believe I could contribute to harnessing the collective sensibility that I feel is our greatest hope at this time. Williamson told the Metal News Service, which is run by Northwestern University, in an exclusive interview. No other Democrats have officially waded into the race yet, making Williamson the first. Williamson previously teased an important announcement that she said she would be making on March 4th, which has been speculated as presidential announcement. Williamson gained notoriety during the 2020 presidential race, especially during the first several presidential primary debates, where some of her spiritual remarks won her fans online. But honestly, the better of all of them was Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi, God, I wish
miss
she
her.
would've-
However, her campaign lasted 1 year, and she dropped out in January 2020. During her interview with the Medill News Service, she also criticized the Democratic National Committee's decision to change the early presidential primary schedule, which places South Carolina as the first state in the lineup. South Carolina, where Biden placed first in 2020, is widely credited for helping boost his momentum in the Democratic primary. How can you claim to be a champion of democracy when your own process is so non-democratic? Williamson told the student-run news outlet.
Ooh, them's fighting words.
See, it's crazy because while they're just going for the nominees, they'll go against each other. But then once
And then
it's
it all
like,
zips up.
Yep. But then
Like,
once one person
they're
wins the
actually not that
nominee,
bad.
yeah, they're
I was talking a lot of
alright,
crap,
We're,
you
we're
know,
gonna
I was trying to
endorse
get
them.
elected.
They're great. The news.
Let's take a picture together.
And smile, bitch.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean seriously, that's how
basically
they
it
act
goes
towards
down.
each other.
They're like sitting there and they're like arm in arm. They're like, I hate
you.
you.
The news comes as polling has often shown Democrats less favorable of a Biden re-election bid. One poll from the Associated Press NORC Center of Research Public Affairs Research, for example, saw only 37% of the members of his party polled supportive of a second Biden term. Biden was expected to make an announcement that he will be running for re-election in the coming weeks. Multiple sources told The Hill last month, though it is unclear when that might happen. So there's that.
You know, I think Trump might have dropped the ball on this. Maybe
Think so?
Maybe he should have like waited and let other people declare their candidacy, and then come out and like tried to shellac people there at the end.
Yeah, might have been the way to go about it.
Maybe.
I kind of like, I kind of like the call for Andre Green for president of the Wellness Center Basketball Association.
I second that.
WCBA. I agree with that.
He actually said something else though about Biden's executive order and the attack on the Second Amendment.
Oh, no, I didn't see that part.
We have
you
not
covered
covered that,
Biden's
Dre.
executive order on the attack of the Second Amendment. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Biden executive. Yeah, that's right. We did talk about that. Or we didn't talk about it here, but we have talked about it. So yeah, he signed an executive order on gun control. So let's see what all that has to do. So, unfortunately, I'm getting this from NBC, so forgive me. The president signed the order ahead of a trip in Monterey, blah, 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 where 11 people, blah, 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 don't care. President Joe Biden signed an executive order on Tuesday designed to increase background checks in a visit to Los Angeles suburb. Give me some facts about it. That's all I want. The executive order directs.
You went to the wrong source for
Yeah, no
facts, my
joke.
friend. You should have went to the Fact Is podcast.
The executive order directs Attorney General Merrick Garland to clarify the statutory definition of who is engaged in the business of selling firearms. An authority and administration officials said was detailed in sweeping bipartisan gun legislation. That's so the National Instant background check system carried out more than 31 million background checks on people looking to own firearms or explosives last year, the FBI data shows. I'm confused. What more do you want? Right? Like, we already get background checks. They're already pretty damn extensive.
They want the Second Amendment gone.
I mean, that's truly what it feels like. Because, again, for anybody who has actually purchased a firearm, okay, let's you get background checks. If you have any sort of... If you have anything coming up on your record, I mean, like, literally, if you're a felon, they will call the cops right then and there because it's clearly illegal for you to purchase a firearm and you're trying to do so. Yeah. So they will call the cops. I mean, it's not like people just walk in and they're a felon and they grab this firearm. Most of these firearms that are obtained by people who are already felons or those who
done
are
so
looking,
illegally
have done so illegally, or they rob, and they again create what's called a ghost gun where they get rid of the serial number. All they got to do is scrape it off there, and it's not like it's an extremely hard process to make it untraceable, right? So to be able to just break into somebody's house, take it, and do that, I mean, that's more than likely how these firearms are obtained, if not on the black market as it is.
Yeah.
So
Silk Road.
Again, I don't understand what more background checks is going to do. Like, it will literally do nothing. It's just going to piss people off. Law-abiding citizens, at that. So
Gerard Butler's going to get real mad.
I love that movie, by the way. Probably like one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life.
I don't know about all of that, but it's a good one. Dre, about this Wellness Center Basketball Association, are we going to have a collective bargaining agreement in that, or?
So if I pay you off, can I win more?
No. CBA, dude. We need to get paid. We need contracts. As serious as people are taking this thing.
Do I get a shoe deal?
No.
Oh, I love it. But yeah, so that's...
You do get to lift weights, though, for free if you sign up for the basketball league.
I'll do that. They're also stolen out of unlocked vehicles way more than they need to be, which is actually a good point also, which is why you don't keep your vehicle or your handguns in your vehicle.
Unless they're under a lock and key.
Unless they're under a lock and key or in your garage or something, that'd be a little bit different.
Wait till you see my new garage.
Like... You have a new garage?
No. I have a garage in my dreams, and it's lined. And
Hey, I have a question for your garage.
Grand Theft Auto.
I like that.
A question for you. Is there a Corvette in your garage?
No.
Okay.
Is there a Corvette in yours?
It's a Biden reference.
Yeah. When he said it, they were in my garage.
Oh, I get it now.
That is a good reference. That's funny because it took me a second. Yeah, it took me a second. By the way, they were near my Corvette in my garage.
I wasn't trying to flex on you or nothing.
I thought that's just I was like, dang, Stooge is gonna call me out. Is there a
Stooge got
Corvette
a
in your
vet in the
bro?
garage. Okay,
Like, bro, you got a Corvette? Like, why haven't I seen it yet?
Dre says he'll swap shoes.
Oh no, I don't want Dre's shoes.
Dre
plays hard. I don't.
Yeah,
want
that's a good
his
point.
shoes.
You go through them shoes probably pretty
Are
quick.
they little Bow Wow shoes from Like Mike?
They probably. No.
No,
they're not.
it makes him
But
play like Mike.
Dre plays hard. So like Dre's the guy who like runs and intercepts passes and is like all over the place on defense. I am sure that you do not want those shoes.
So background checks, red flag laws, and national registry. So background checks, look, I mean, background checks are fine. All right, like what we have instated now with background checks, I'm completely fine with. A national registry definitely should be a no. And then obviously red flag laws are a no. Because, I mean, if I just wanted to, again, I could go up to any other normal citizen and be like, that guy doesn't deserve a gun. He's absolutely insane. Please take it away from him. And that gives police the authority to
Start investigating.
Yeah, to investigate. Actually, I'm pretty sure with red flag laws, what they've introduced recently, it gives them the ability to remove those firearms from your possession just from accusations.
What happened to innocent until proven guilty?
Don't really know. And now I could be wrong on that. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But from my understanding, red flag laws are exactly that. Just the accusation alone can get your firearms taken away from you.
But does it have to be an accusation from a credible source though?
That is.
Would it have to be an accusation from like a gun shop?
No, it could be anybody.
It
from
could
my
be anybody.
understanding. It
So
could be
I
like
could
your
just
neighbor.
walk up on the street with my phone and say, "Pony Boy over here is crazy and should not have a firearm."
This is where we need somebody that's like for these kind of things.
And well, so Dre actually, so he's big into firearms. So this is good that he's on here, and he said yes. So actually, yes. I mean, like, I maybe not.
No,
to
I mean
that
like that's for the background checks, for the registry, for
oh,
the
I
red
know.
flag
'Cause
laws.
I would love to see their argument for that. Now,
Yeah.
I don't believe it would just be like some random person coming up to you or whatever. But like, if your neighbor, right? If your neighbor was like, "Hey, this guy really has got to get
Maybe
his,"
you cut down a tree and it landed on his yard.
yeah, you just piss him off civilly, and they want to,
Or my dog went over and pooped on
pooped
the
in his
yard.
yard. Yeah, for real. So those are the kinds of things that red flag laws kind of introduce, which is scary.
That kind of sucks.
Because I would never want anybody to just be able to remove my firearms because they think I'm not stable enough to have them.
So, Nave.
We need to talk. But yeah, I mean that's
Yeah. So who determines if you're unstable?
yeah, I mean that's just
That
it.
would be me. The guy with the hat.
The tin hat.
No, this one's fur. Camel's fur.
Not as pointy. But yeah, I mean that's where
Much
the
softer.
I
that's
saw you
where-
swerving on the way here. Gonna have to take your guns.
Yeah, I mean
Are you
that's
drinking those non-alcoholic beers, you crazy person, you?
that's where I mean that's just where. By the way, you need to try those Heineken now, non-alcoholics. Those are
I have some of those up in the fridge, as well as Guinness.
They're pretty good.
Guinness has a drought that is non-alcoholic as well.
Okay, so Dre says no. It can be your neighbor. Okay, cool. Don't have any of those idiots on here. I agree with that, but it's kind of fun to at least hear the argument. We actually, a long while back, we had a communist come onto this show, and that was interesting. Yeah, Joseph, that was an interesting one. He still interacts with us every once in a while, which is again very interesting. But Dean intervened as well. He says, I think red flag laws vary by state, but the accusation has to be given to the magistrate or to a court. So once the accuser petitions the court then decides whether or not the person is stable. Okay. So, I mean, at least there's somewhat of a process to it, but still the fact that anybody could just make those accusations is what scares me. Is there going to be any backlash against those who make false accusations? You know, are they going to be held accountable for trying to go around and create a situation to where, again, I'm getting my firearms removed? I don't know. He said, I'm not sure, but I believe that person is given the opportunity to defend themselves, but they might have their guns taken before they're allowed to defend themselves in court. That's what sucks. Your firearms get confiscated. Then you have to go prove you're innocent, and you're basically already guilty until proven innocent.
Well, let's say you're in like an area that is pro-gun. You know, the process would probably work. But if you're in an area that is mostly anti-gun,
That would not
you
work.
might be screwed.
Yeah. So, I mean, you would have to look at those
That's
kind of
when you move to
situations as
Florida.
well. That's when you move to Florida. I love it. So, that's all we got for tonight's episode.
Ronnie T 2024.
Anybody else got anything before we log off here?
Dean.
Dean said there are certain circumstances where I believe some people do need their weapons removed due to mental health issues.
Absolutely.
That's a little different, right? When you have genuine mental health issues and you're actually like medicated or you're seeing a professional, whatnot, you know, that's where, that's where it makes sense, right? The hard part is getting your guns back once they're gone, and that's where it's gonna suck. I love Dre's comment. He said,
I'm sitting here cracking up. I'm like, you gonna read it, Dave? You gonna read it, Dave?
But I was like laughing. He said, no, it's not fun, and F them tyrants. I agree with you, Dre. But yeah, Dean, that's the most concerning part. Once they get taken away, the amount of paperwork and crap you
Heartache
probably
you
have to go through
to get them
just
back.
to get them back. And again,
I still
the
think
amount of
that's
money,
a vague law, though.
It is very vague.
It's meant to
but
be.
That's the problem. Yeah, it's meant to be. And the other issue with all that is, again, is it gonna cost money for you to get those firearms back?
Absolutely, because you have to petition the court. You have to go through
Exactly.
the legal
So,
system, hire a lawyer.
Is the accuser going to pay for all of that, or does it all come out of your pocket just because somebody wanted to really put you through the ringer? That's where those issues come about.
Yep.
So think about that for a little bit.
And also, for those of you newly tuning in, this
non-alcoholic
is
beer.
a non-alcoholic Athletic Brewing Company beer.
Give it a rest, man.
Hey, man, I'm really excited about it because I thought my days of getting to enjoy a nice cold beer were over when I stopped drinking, and now I get to enjoy them again.
I do have
With
some
no
advice
alcohol.
for people, though.
Let me hear it.
If you're watching this and you are anti-gun or you've never purchased a gun, I advocate that you go purchase one and go to a range and shoot it.
I agree with that.
I feel like that would change people's minds a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there is something that's really awesome about tucking a gun to your shoulder, pulling the trigger, and watching it go boom.
Yep, I agree. I mean, it's very fun. It's, because here's the thing. As a guy who grew up in a household where you weren't as informed about firearms, I had to teach myself just about everything I know. And to learn more about them and to actually use them and get to experience that for the first time was incredible. And I really did enjoy it. So,
Dre actually just brought up a great lawsuit.
what happens when they confiscate your guns over a BS claim and you get burglarized while unprotected? That's a good question too.
Ooh. Especially when it comes back to find out that you are sane of mind and you have rightfully obtained your firearms and you've been burglarized while all this process was going down.
And then Dre says, "Tell him to call me. I'll teach him." So Dre, if you'd like, please go ahead and name off. I would love to give you.
plug.
Yeah, I'd
Let's
love to give
go.
you a
Come on,
shameless
Dre.
plug. So
Shameless plug.
name what you got going on, and we'll kind of announce that as we're logging off here. Real quick, do want to touch up on what Dean said. Practice safe gun ownership, get training, and know how to use and handle your firearm, and learn how to use
Absolutely.
it with respect. You got to learn how to respect your
Respect
firearm.
the firearm.
So let's start logging off slowly. For anybody who hasn't noticed, we have a board.
Right here.
It's right here.
It's right there. We got a board.
The fact is, make sure you like, comment, share, follow. I'll tell you as many times as it takes to get you to actually do it. So
Also,
please,
make sure you
do that.
like, comment, share, and follow. I put it on there twice
just so you know.
for your knowledge.
Also, again, this is what we're going to be using to kind of display what we're going to be talking about. So if you do come in a little bit late into the episode and you want us to go back and kind of touch up on something, we can kind of give you an overview and kind of talk about that. But yeah, so please make sure you all, again, do exactly what that says. Like, comment, share, and
Like,
follow.
comment, share, follow.
As we're logging off, please make sure you do all of that with those that you agree with, but more with those that you disagree with, because we
Why,
here at The
Nave?
Fact Is podcast
Why, Nave?
believe that we have more in common than what we don't. Boom. So, with all
my
that
gosh.
being said,
Hold on. That was supposed to be boom, boom, boom.
the finger gun.
I didn't mean like a. I meant like a.
Hey. So, with all that being said, again, like we've stated multiple times, please make sure you like, comment, share, and follow.
Hold on. And then Dre with the shameless plug here. Let's go.
Dre. So, for anybody who is looking to learn how to use a firearm, for anybody who wants to know how to use a firearm and respect a firearm, we have a licensed FFL certified instructor who used to be in the Spec Ops for the and he's now an Army vet. So please make sure you all visit his LLC. It's called Domestic Defense Team. It is his company, and what he will do is he will teach you how to use your firearm. He will teach you a lot of defense tactics with your firearm. He'll teach you how to use it up and down, left, right, take it apart, take care of it, do anything you want to do. So,
And on top of it, Dre is also just a very stand-up gentleman.
Oh,
and
God, yes.
you will thoroughly enjoy his company.
Hey, is he going to pay us for that ad?
Dre, we're gonna have to talk.
You'll just
And
have to.
I'm contacting Athletic Brewing Company.
Whenever we're playing ball, you just got to make sure you throw the game, and we'll be good. Call it even. especially when I'm against you.
Remember that CBA I was talking about?
And thank you for the board comment. Dean, thank you for joining us again. Appreciate it. It was a
faithful.
great episode. We truly enjoyed it. Love talking
Every
about what
Wednesday
we
at
talk
8.
about. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. we will be here. And we will be doing this episode every Wednesday at 8 p.m. So, with that being said, y'all, this was the 116th episode of the Fact Is podcast.
116.
We will see you all next week for the 117 Master Chief. Love Halo. And with that being said, we were your hosts, Nate Moses.
And I'm Ryan Mays.
And we will see you all next week for episode 117. Thank you all.
Peace.